This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Sometimes history repeats itself. Sometimes history repeats itself. Sometimes, well, you get the point. For 4 of the last 5 rounds, Gaspers has finished first, while Sadro has followed him home in second. But predictability can't be counted on when you pit the Spec racer against a track like Daytona. The banking is nearly overkill and allows a NASCAR-esque draft race for these small machines. We'll see if this will finally flip the script as we get ready to watch round 9 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Stefan Schlacker. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Steph, Daytona is probably more well known for hosting NASCAR and sports car endurance races than club-level race cars.
Well, that's for sure, Joe. These 3.56 miles or 5.729 kilometers of tarmac laid out in the shape of this oval and road course is most definitely more known for the Daytona 24 Hours or the motorcycle races that also go around here. But Bike Racer Ford still a very suitable car for this track. You might not think about it. The draft races obviously are plenty here, and it's all about the infield. The more you can get around that, the faster you can get around that, the better you will be off around the long straights. 1.1 seconds is the mark that you will have to look out here for today on the bankings, because that's the draft range of the Spec Racer Ford. You're gonna see pack races might have some problems in that first hairpin, that turn 1. How tricky that one actually is to drive in that old version of the track, well, you're gonna see now on the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Amjad Yaman in the GSRC Skippy, so let's do a lap around Daytona. Around the tri-oval and into turn 1, most cars require you to swing wide for the entry, but the underpowered Skippy is still fast hugging the inside line. You'll let it drift out after braking and kind of take it as a double apex corner. The extra speed from the draft will probably make it easy to overshoot into there, so expect some big mistakes by drivers. Weave through the chicane, and then after the pit exit, bring the car all the way to the left. The International Horseshoe will offer a place to pass, and if you can get it done, try your best to pull away, or else your opponent will just slipstream by once again on the oval. Be sure to square off the exit for better speed up to the next horseshoe. After that, ease the car across the track, and without much oomph, you're going to easily hold the pedal flat to the floor through the kink. Try to get the car off to the left for braking into the western horseshoe. The tricky part about this bend is the way the track sharpens in the middle but widens on entry and exit. It honestly makes it very tough to get the car down to the apex. Bring it off to the right and then really focus on hitting your mark into turn 6. This is a critical corner because being late onto the power as you come to the oval will mean you'll lose time hand over fist. There's not much to say about the banking because you'll only get up to about 120 miles an hour when by yourself. Smooth out your inputs and hug the double yellow line. Skipping ahead to the bus stop, though this is a popular spot for overtakes, this double chicane often causes problems when cars enter too wide. Cut course penalties can also cost you dearly, so take it to the edge at your peril. Once again, the sooner you can put your right foot down, the better off your laps will be as we now hit NASCAR 3 and 4. From here to the start-finish line, you'll just hold down to the inside. As I mentioned before, draft battles will make up a big chunk of the race, and you may have to play it more strategic than gutsy. But now that we've hit the tri-oval once more, you've now finished a lap around Daytona.
You see a lap around in the Skippy. Unfortunately, Amjad tried to take the SRF out for a little bit of a joyride on the banking around the oval course, and, well, he blew the engine on it eventually. So had to hop in the good old Skippy to give you a ride around here. But You don't need to take a ride around Daytona to enjoy the sponsor of this series. The Weekend Warriors is brought to you by Sim Stickers. Whether it's button boxes, steering wheels, or keyboards, they have you covered. You can find out more about them at simstickers.co.uk. And big thanks to them for coming back for another season of coverage here for the Weekend Warriors. The championship, well, we told you about how it's been finishing lately, so you can probably guess how things are looking. Gaspers leading Sadro, and then it's a long ways back to that tie for fourth between Elson and McAreevy. Pretty much nobody else has been able to be as consistent as those two. Juracek a little bit farther down, rounding out our top five. We have an amateur championship in this series. We call it the Spec 2. Steph, what's the lowdown there?
Well, it's much, much more closer than the Spec 1 championship. Ed Doherty is still leading that one, but only 7 points between himself and Popcorn in second place. Yu Haycock's third place, 16 points behind, not too far either. Nico Shuk, our former leader of this class just 2 races ago, now 25 points behind Edward Doherty. And then Dominic Bureau, the Canadian driver, fifth, 49 points. He is behind Edward Doherty, and we have a little bit of an interesting site here in Daytona. But what is really all about this race here today, Joe?
Well, today's race details includes the fact that it's a 40-minute race, as it is all season long. But if you haven't watched before, you might not be expecting there is a pit stop because they've limited the fuel compared to what the real cars run. They also ration the points in this series. So no matter how many drivers turn out, which is a lot today, it's always 25 points for last and 100 for a win. Now, they also get incident points, penalty points for incidents, rather, all 10 of them, and they get -3 on their championship points. Now, that's going to be able to be a problem if they cut the bus stop a little bit too much, which is easy to do, especially in these cars where they're momentum-based and they're trying to carry as much speed as possible. So we'll have to watch out for that. Everywhere else, you probably don't want to be heading off for 1X anywhere on track. One thing that you do want to do is you definitely want to subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network as soon as you get the opportunity. It's easy enough. If you're watching this on YouTube itself, just scroll down a little bit and you can see the subscribe button right there. It's big and red. Can't miss it. You won't miss a moment here with the Weekend Warriors. Hey, if you've wondered about our merch that we've been talking about recently, you can see a link below in the description there as well. One of the things that you can buy is our baseball caps. Now, these are very special baseball caps. They actually will open portals to other dimensions, these things. Very, very cool stuff. Apparently, we took some inspiration from a 90s toys line for those, but we figured that's a feature that most of our drivers would appreciate, considering the age group we tend to reach here on GSRC. Only $20, and you can travel to any dimension you can want. Right now in the qualifying, which I'm expecting is going to be a little bit mixed up because, well, like we said, Steph's draft race, I see Alessandrini is up on the top spot with Ryan Walker behind him, but Walker's been pretty fast. Still looking to see if we can find David Gaspers right now.
Well, Joe, you just teased the point that I wanted to make. David Gaspers, last race, he said he wouldn't race. About 20 minutes ago, he said he didn't even have his wheel attached to his table, but yet he is driving. It's just a Weekend Warriors. You can't resist them. Just drive, just race, just win. That's David Gaspers right now sitting in 34th. That was his outlap. He's right now coming around the dogleg here at Daytona. Let's see what he can do as he crosses the line. Should be a good one, but he probably is a little bit slower. Yes, indeed, that's a 2-minute 14.2 because he's all alone.
I think they tend to call it the tri-oval here when they talk about that front little kink. You can see Gasper's last lap down there is going to put him into 25th, so he's still got some work to do. In fact, his rival, Sadro, is only in 11th himself, and he's had a number of laps already, but Sadro's out there by himself as we see that Bremen, it looks like that's Elson back there, are coming across working together. I have to think if you want to be up at the front, you have to find a friend.
You know, Joe, because you had to bring up the tri-oval there. You know, It's 3 turns, 5 corners, yet they say 4 turns, so who knows?
So Nico Schuk up to 8th, and the second driver in the Spec 2 race right now. The provisional pole there is held by Hugh Haycox, who is actually giving a tow to Christopher Patterson currently. You can see there's Patterson in the 70. Is he going to get a little bit of a slingshot? Or is he going to practice pitting in? He's going to practice pitting in. I was kind of wondering about that myself, Steph, that drivers really going to have to work on that pit entry out here.
Well, it is a rather interesting one, but if you get your breaking point right, you don't really have much troubles. It's a very deep entry there, so you don't really have too much trouble, especially because you can go quite far to the left, and that's actually what you want to do. You want to go quite far to the left and just about cut that entry cone. Not like Nick Carthy right now is doing. But yeah, just get down there, practice your breaking point, and then it's all good. Where really you have to be careful is that pit exit, because, well, going a little bit too fast through that left-hand kink, you're gonna run into that, and that wall does hurt.
I'm seeing a little bit of a frenemies moment here, because David Gaspers and Daniel Sadro have hooked up out in qualifying, and I'm starting to think they might work together here. It's just happens. Gaspers slowed on the way up to the bus stop, so I don't know if it was intentional on Sadro's part, but clearly Gaspers wants to try and work with him to see what he can pull. As for some reason he goes up to the high side. Is he taking a little bit of NASCAR inspiration?
Well, he goes up there to get a little bit of momentum already onto the start-finish straight, and also get some distance between himself and Sadro, because you really want to get now into the slipstream like he does, and then really let yourself get pulled up to turn 1, and then obviously also back on the backstretch. So yeah, should be interesting what David Gaspers can do. He will most definitely close in quite a lot, especially all the way up to the bus stop.
Does reel him in down into the first corner. They're also going to have Chris Murakami here. He's just coming out of the pits. He could slow them up a little bit depending on what kind of pace he has in the infield as they go by the car of Paulo Brame off the track through the International Horseshoe. One thing
honestly,
we haven't... go ahead.
If anything, that helps them right there.
I think he's far enough ahead that that's going to be another little bit of slipstream that they'll be getting. From what it looks like, we continue to ride on board with Gaspers, who takes a little peek to the inside as they go through now the Western Horseshoe. I was going to mention, we haven't said yet, I don't think, that this is the 2007 version of Daytona. So this is before the repave they did a few years later. And so it's a little bumpy, but you're telling me it's not much of an issue here along this portion.
No, it really isn't for the Spec Racer Ford. It's just not fast enough to really get upset by those big bumps. Yes, the bumps are big. Yes, you've noticed them in this car, but with the soft suspension the Spec Racer Ford anyway has, you don't really notice them. They're not any problems whatsoever, like you can see with David Gaspers, who is pushing Sadro through turn 2, the NASCAR turn 2 there. Just, it is what it is. Yes, those bumps are there, but they're to no problem whatsoever for these Spec Racer Fords.
While Sadro's still down in 13th, the checkered flag comes out, getting cars finishing up their qualifying currently as we watch them now around NASCAR 3 and 4, still giving more little taps along the way to try and speed him up. Watching to see if anybody improves this time by. So it looks like Nico Schuk is going to be crossing, currently second still in our Spec 2. Just ahead of this group. Let's see if he improves. No, he does not. And what about our tandem runners here? Sadro doesn't improve it. In fact, he doesn't first count that, but Gaspers gets the fastest lap of qualifying.
Easy first. As said, 11.6. What do you expect from Gaspers? He's Gaspers. He does what he wants to do because he's the friendly ghost.
Bob Kern now getting ready to finish his. He's down in 30th and also doesn't pick up pace here on his most recent lap.
Adam Bradshaw, the next one to finish right now, sitting in 6th place. He's all alone, so I don't expect too much of an improvement there. Didn't even count for him. so he's gonna stay in 6th place.
Jackson behind him does improve. I think we're getting to the last of the cars that will be crossing the line. Hugh Haycox doesn't count that lap. Neither does Emil Orza. They must have had a little bit too much of a touch for that, for unfortunately that qualifying lap. Aaron Vagley's last lap, not an improvement. Tony Schuch as well. Looks like he can't go quicker that time by. It is a little bit of a hot day today, 97 degrees on the track surface. And I think that's everybody for our qualifying. We'll see if that makes it slippery for those who are going to be out riding by themselves, as we might have a few that get lost amidst the packs. But our qualifying is over, so let's go through your starting order today. It is going to be David Gaspers on the pole with DJ Alessandrini starting behind him. Then it's Ryan Walker, who is P3. Brett Holton starts in 4th, and James DeBoer, P5. Adam Bradshaw starts in 6th. He'll be flanked by Stephen Elson in 7th, with Hugh Haycox starting in 8th. Row 5 has Ian Haycox right behind him, and Nico Schuch rounds out your top 10.
11th place on the grid will go to Michael Doback. Alongside him will be the number 294 of Edward Doherty. Ramon Regalado 13th, Daniel Sadro only 14th, so he will have to work quite hard to get up to David Gaspers. Stevie Ray in 15th, Jim McGill in 16th, Christopher Patterson 17th, Miroslav Juricek 18th, Tony Schuch 19th, and 20th on the grid goes to the number 76 machine of Fred Desai.
Then you get to Chris Murakami in P21. Emil Orza will be starting in 22nd. Dominique Bureau will be starting in 23rd. To his outside, it is Paolo Brim in the 24th position. Antonio Reese, who had a rough start to qualifying, will be starting in 25th spot. Then it's Aaron Vagley in 26th. Kellen Rhodes, P27 for him. Jeff Jacobs starts 28th. And then in 29th, you've got Bill Daly. Bob Kern rounds out your top 30.
Or Wayne Walker, not Ryan Walker, it's Wayne Walker in the 94 machine in 31st. Nick Carty, 32nd. Ian Wilson, 33rd on the grid. Paul Jackson will line up 34th. Loki John in 35th. Glenn Powley, 36th. Mats Sjöblom, 37th. And last but not least on the grid, the 271 machine of Pascal Montmorency in 38th. And with that, every single driver has put in at least a banker of a lap in qualifying.
And they're lining up behind the Porsche pace car around here, waiting for the pace lap. As we mentioned, there will be at least one pit stop that we are expecting, because they do not have enough fuel to go for the full distance. But the fuel tends to be a talking point here on these draft tracks. So I'm curious how much they can save just riding behind if you're not interested in trying to overtake Steph.
a lot. Just much. Pretty sure you can nearly save 2 laps of fuel if you ride for the full first stint behind the guy ahead of you.
Still a couple more that we're waiting to line up on the grid. I think the last one should be Aaron Vagley, who they should bring out here. Oh, nope, he's lost his internet connection. So unfortunately, Aaron won't be able to start this race with the rest of the field. Hopefully he can get it turned back around in time to get a pit lane start. And if that's the case, he's going to be looking to try and catch the back of the field as soon as possible.
He has about, I think, 3.5 minutes of pace lap. So, yeah, pretty sure that he will be able to get back into the session.
Now, what's it going to be like breaking down into this first corner, especially when we have everybody still packed together here when we get the green? Because this car not known for liking being off throttle and trying to turn. Is it going to be easy to get it whipped around?
Oh yeah, it will be quite easy to get it whipped around. So yeah, drivers will have to be careful. Drivers might be a little bit of it on the tipsy-toe side there around that first turn, because we might see a little bit of trouble, a little bit of wiggling, because these guys are most definitely going to be too wide, maybe even 3 wide or 4 wide if they are a little bit too desperate on the first lap down into turn 1.
It come down through the kink and into the western horseshoe. The back half of the infield portion, where they're going to hit one of the most important corners on the track, turn 6. We've got to get on the throttle as soon as you can, carry your momentum, make sure you don't lose the draft to the car ahead, and you start to enter onto the banking. I do believe I've seen real-world footage where they have taken Spec Racer Fords around the road course around here. Granted, I can't imagine what it must be like getting in that itty-bitty little car and riding on this huge, high-banked corner. Especially if they rode at a pace speed like this, 62. I feel like you'd probably be almost leaning into the left side of the car with the gravity pulling you down. And they hit the long super stretch. The grandstands there, rest in peace, unfortunately. No longer a part of Daytona in modern day. Took those out. Actually, I'm a little bit sad about that. I feel like it made this backstretch feel a lot more grandiose and big.
Is it still called the Super Stretch? Is that still a thing, that name?
It is if we wanted to.
All right, okay.
In our hearts.
But yeah, no, that backstretch, the backstretch stands, they give it a little bit of a something. But let's be real, it's an oval. Ovals don't ever really have anything around them. So yeah, I'm not surprised that it went because, well, it's expensive to keep that up. So yeah, it's a wise decision, money-wise, but yeah, something most definitely is missing there. I see a car with damage on the rear. Loki John, what did he do?
Not entirely sure. Maybe he got a little bit of a tap here as they accordion together during the infield, possibly. But right now they're going to be stretching apart because the Porsche pace car getting ready to head into pit lane. It's going to give control over to David Gaspers. We hope it's going to peel into pit lane. There it goes. Alrighty, we solved the problems from a few seasons ago. Green flag is out, and slowly they all start to pick up speed. A few looking at 3 wide, others not so eager, just waiting patiently and try to bide their time as they all start to pile into turn 1. Who's going to be aggressive into here? Almost 4 wide in some cases in the mid-pack. Few cars bumping into one another, but no big dramas so far.
There was quite the big accordion effect on the inside there. Dominic Bureau getting the worst of it with quite some damage on his rear. Loki John, he had to pit in after the pace lap because he was actually crabbing from that accordion effect all the way down in turn 2.
Front of the field getting single filed pretty quickly, but a lot of others still trying to sort themselves out at the back of the pack as they come down to the International Horseshoe. Still being led by Gaspers. Alessandrini slots into second. Ryan Walker back there in third. Brett Holton is the one in P4 right now. Don't forget Hugh Haycox, who is currently our leader in that Spec 2 field. He sits 6th overall. On the banking for the first time in anger. So what is Alessandrini going to do? We ride on board with Gaspers, watching the number 91. Does he attempt to overtake, or does he just bump draft him and try to push those two forward? He is going to tuck right up beneath them, get into the bump draft train, and see if he can pull away. You can see behind them, it is going 2 wide with Holton overtaking Walker. They'll swap spots for 3rd and 4th, and then everybody woes up for the bus stop. A little bit of side-by-side into there, farther back in the field, but mostly trying to straighten it out. It's difficult to try and stay wheel-to-wheel through there. Meanwhile, our top group has been caught, and Holton wants the lead.
Well, that's just the drafting that you do here. It is always going to be the 3rd car that will overtake the first 2 cars. And then always like that, because that is the fastest way to drive around this oval.
Ooh, almost 3 wide down into turn
Oh,
1.
that's a touch.
Oh, a little, yeah, shot to the back from, I believe that was Walker getting into the back of Holton down in the first corner. So now the order coming out of it is Gaspers, Alessandrini, Holton, and Bradshaw. They're still side by side down into the International Horseshoe. Now they get it sorted out. They have brought some friends along. They've also got Elson in there, Hugh Haycock, Stevie Ray, Ian Haycox, Edward Doherty, Nico Schuk, and Daniel Sadro in this first group that goes to 13th.
Yeah, and the second group, first time 3 wide into turn 1, and then into the International Horseshoe. They once again were 3 wide. That really doesn't help your pace. Also then Miroslav Juricek, with a misshift, he went from 16th to 22nd, and Ramon Regalado spun out in the Western Horseshoe.
He's falling way down the order now. There are a lot of cars connected, but not our top 2 to those behind them. Bradshaw just within the slipstream, about a second back, but he's got Holton on his high side. If they work together, they could maybe run up to them. But they're starting to lose ground.
I honestly am a little bit clueless what Brad Holton is doing there. He is holding up each other, so himself and Adam Bradshaw, so much that even Steven Elson from 7th place comes all the way up to 4th place. So yeah, Brad Holton really not doing himself very good, and they're only 1.6 seconds behind DJ Alessandrini, which means that they are out of the draft.
First victim of the bus stop is Nico Schuk. He spun all on his own for this one. We got a replay. Hit a bump somewhere in there, and the car got jostled around. Around she went. Returns all the way down in 31st from that. And whoa, what happened here?
Oh no, I don't. Oh.
Nico on his lid.
Yeah, Nico completely the innocent bystander. Glenn Powley and Ian Wilson on the top side got together, and I honestly have no clue what Glenn Powley was doing there.
Tried to duck low at the last second, and then they just kind of wobbled into one another. And yeah, poor Nico Schuk. That's not the way he wanted today to go. They do have a spare car, though, so he can get back out with a fresh machine. You can see from Howley's perspective.
Yeah, right there, just once he's down low and then somehow goes up again and right into Ian Wilson, and that sends both of these drivers into Nico Schuk. Oh, Edward Doherty just got spun by Ian Haycox. You Haycox, sorry.
Yeah, he gets it turned around. Also seeing just a train of cars go by. Let's take another look at this. There's Haycox. Ghost contact, maybe?
I don't know. It kind of looks like he lost it, but it also kind of looks like there was a little bit of netcode between the two.
Yeah, difficult to tell from that angle. Once we come back live, it's already up to 2.6 seconds that Elson and Bradshaw are behind Gaspers and Alessandrini. They're going to have a friend blast on through, and that is going to be Stevie Ray, who heads to the front of the train. Oh, but he's going to put poor Steven Elson off the course. That's going to be a for sure cut course penalty. Hopefully he doesn't lose too much time. This is very sloppy back here.
Stevie Ray, he had the right idea, just overshot the bus stop ever so slightly, thus putting Steven Elson, who just went normal pace through there, didn't expect Stevie Ray to have that hiccup. Yeah, just unfortunate for Steve Elson, but yeah, he's going to be there in no time once again.
Oh, and Murakami. What is going on here? A lot of cars wrecked on the way up to the tri-oval. Fred Desai involved in that? What did you wreck there?
Oh,
they tried to do a 3-car tandem.
No, you know what? That was some unfortunate netcode between Murakami and Daniel Sadro, which sent Sadro flying on into the outside wall.
I don't think it was necessarily netcode. He was being pushed and tried to push Sadro, and 3 cars in the line just doesn't seem to work. Yeah, there you see it right there. collects a lot of people. Even it kept going onto the tri-oval, going as far back as looks like Bob Kern got a piece of it. This is not proving to be the greatest moment for our drivers. We've seen much better from them. So I'm hoping our audience doesn't think that this is a typical race here from the Weekend Warriors. Usually the skill level, especially up at the front, is both respectful and impeccable. Wayne Walker had a tow from an incident.
Euro.
Turn 6.
Euro got quite the shove from Edward Doherty. And then there's another car involved in that. Was it Emil Orsa coming to the scene? Yes, it was then. Yeah, Emil Orsa trying to go around the outside there, and Bureau trying to get out of the way. And yeah, that's just two cars unfortunately meeting off the racing surface.
I think we're seeing a lot of spare cars being dragged out of the pit lane. But for poor Emil, to quote a famous knight, Bill Daly now with issues. The 722, unfortunately, into the wall.
Yep, that
was, did Murakami get him, or was that his own mistake? That was his own mistake, and then Murakami finished him off. Yeah.
Yeah. And that car became one with the barrier.
All this is happening about 5.5 seconds behind Steve.
Oh, Stevie Ray!
Excuse me, DJ.
Woo! I'm sorry, Stevie Ray just had quite a hiccup in turn 1, colliding with Brett Holt. Both of the cars can continue, but that was, yeah, quite a hiccup from Stevie Ray.
Let's watch him catch this car. Oh! Wow. Did a good job getting that woed up in time.
Well, he had help from the car of Brett Holton.
Hey, no harm, no foul. They both keep going, and as they work their way around the Western Horseshoe, that train being led by Elson, that's Holton in front of him, and it's Ian Haycox behind, and Walker at the tail of the train. They've got James DeBoer trying to grab onto the draft, and I think he's close enough he could do it this time. Become a 2-horse race really up at the front. This is all trying to settle down third between this group that we're watching.
Yeah, first place is about 6, nearly 7 seconds now already away from everyone behind them. And I have to say, quite honestly, that gap started to grow once Brett Holton just started to attack everyone everywhere. And yeah, it wasn't the wisest decision by Brett Holton. I mean, I know what he wanted to do. He wanted to catch the train for first place, but that's just not how he did it.
It was way wide through the exit of the train. Oh, and Tabor, who was so close to catching them, unfortunately loses out big time. Another bit of folly at the bus stop, and he doesn't even hit the tires. This one goes all the way out to the concrete.
Yeah, he nearly takes the second part of this chicane, and yeah, just tries to catch that, doesn't catch it, goes into the outside wall and loses also the servo because he disconnected.
Called it a day, it seems, as we ride on board with second place Alessandrini, just behind David Gaspers, who've been working together quite beautifully thus far. Oh, we've had a problem with Juracek. Juracek is going to take the pit exit, actually. Not after pitting. Looks like he had a little contact side to side with Tony Schuch.
Yeah, and Tony Schuch, he caught a little bit the bump on the transition out of the banking right into Juracek. Juracek takes a 360 into the pit exit. Luckily for him, the pit lane already ends way earlier, so he doesn't get unsafe pit entry.
I was going to say, I don't think there should be a penalty for that, so he should be good. As we come back live once again, we've got Holton up at the front of the group with Ray. Oh, and that was a shot to the back from Ray with Steve Elson making contact. Ian Haycock's going to go through. This could break this group up.
I'm not sure that Elson actually hit Stevie Ray, just went wide, was able to avoid them. But yeah, be sure about that one. Those three drivers will catch Stevie Ray and Brett Holtney.
Ray's going to go by. He's going to take the inside away into the bus stop. Holton slots back into P4. And you were right. There's Ian Haycox already behind him, well within range as they come out of the chicane into NASCAR 3 and 4. Christopher Patterson joining them from a little ways back, trying to catch up to this group. I think he could be close enough to get something here soon.
Yeah, because of all the fighting these guys are doing, he's actually having the fastest lap 2 times in a row now compared to the pack in front of him. And there's actually 2 drivers going into pit lane. It's Steve Elson and Steve Ray.
I was going to say, guess who else it's going to be pitting early? Off they go. And I think they managed not to speed into pit lane. They don't have pit limiters on these cars, so you do have to be careful to get it down to pit lane speed in time.
Oh, you Haycox nearly running into the back of Tony Schuch there into turn 1. Tony Schuch way slower than both Paolo Brem and Hugh Haycox into the braking zone.
I expected there to be a lot more close racing. I mean, we are getting some, but I figured we'd have larger packs up to this point. And there have been so many errors out there that they've broken apart into much smaller groups throughout. You can see just kind of little trains of 2 and 3 all along the way, the track. Oh, Ian Haycox in the Western Horseshoe outbraked himself and nearly took out Holton in the process. Looks like he just missed his brake marker or something. That sends him down to 7th, and with only Jim McGill to work with on track. Looks like Loki John had a problem. He took a tow. Don't need a replay. It looks like he just spun in turn 1 and must have damaged the car too much, hitting the suspension. Had to leave this race.
Brett Holton going very wide onto the grass in the bus stop just now. So that is going to hurt him. He was already quite a bit clear of Ryan Walker and Christopher Patterson. Now right in between those, actually he joins in after Christopher Patterson.
Way wide out there. Lucky he didn't lose the car. Kept it pointed forward, rejoined the track, but has to serve that speeding, or that cut course penalty rather, and give the time back. So Walker now up to P3. Patterson, we thought he was going to join the group. Instead, he's just joined one car. That promotes him to 4th. He has yet to stop, though, since we've had a couple come in. Holton falls back down to P5. Looks like Ian Haycock's going to take his spare car. There it pops into place. And Hugh's going to follow him.
Edward Doherty with a mistake through turn 1 actually was helped by Adam Bradshaw, sorry. Those two came together and Edward Doherty got the worst of that, has a spin out and has to take 360 action through that 90-degree corner.
He probably could have pulled the Eurocheck maneuver and just gone through the pit exit, but he decided not to. Cost him quite a bit of extra time. Murakami pitting. Pit strategy going to be a little mixed up because we'll have some drivers who came in and early and got their extra car, but they still need to stop one more time.
Yeah, one of those people is actually Daniel Sandro in 18th place right now. He is leading the guys who have pitted already, but obviously he still has to make his scheduled pit stop. Actually, yeah. And he is right behind, who is that? Nick Carty and Edward Doherty.
Yeah, this is going to be a long race, and this is probably going to hurt him in the points, especially with Gaspers still up fighting for the victory. at the front. A little bit farther down, we've had some good action for 7th place. No cooperation here because Paolo Brim, Miroslav Juracek, and Tony Shuk have been trying to go side by side through the bus stop a couple times. Now they're going to go too wide along the banking.
Well, there were 3 wide going into the bus stop. That was also very interesting to watch. But yeah, Miroslav Juracek, he's trying to recover from a very bad qualifying. So is Tony Shuk and Paolo Brem, as Paolo goes not into pit lane, but Tony Shuk does.
Yep, we're halfway through this race now, so a few drivers electing to split it in 2 equal parts. Bradshaw follows in. Michael Dobeck is in as well.
Juracek collides with Paolo Brem because he lost the car. Both drivers keep the car straight, but a little bit of damage to both cars.
It's down into the first corner. Let's take another look at it. Hey, you talked about that bump on that transition. This is not the smoothest of moments we've seen from the 84 in previous races.
Yeah, that was just Juracek a little bit too aggressive on the turning. Loses it already driving down the banking even before that small bump. And just, yeah, with the rear of the car, he whips the right front of Paolo Brem and sends him also into a tiny little bit of spin. And yeah, both cars get a little bit of fiberglass damage, but pretty sure that could have been much more costly for both of them.
Certainly would have. As we watch our top 2, they've now extended it to 13 seconds over Ryan Walker. This is a huge gap from 2nd to 3rd, especially since we're only halfway through the race. But these 2 seem to have figured out the game a little bit better than everybody else around them. Credit to Walker and Patterson. They've been working together as far as I've seen. Haven't really been squabbling over that last podium spot, just essentially riding and swapping around. Oh, and are they both coming in?
Yes, sir.
They're both pitting.
I think David tried to sell the dummy there a little bit on DJ, but it didn't really work. So yeah, both drivers are pitting in, and that should be interesting because remember, DJ, he was driving in the draft all race long, so we might see a position swap right there between the 2 in the pit stalls.
That's a good point. Gaspers was really breaking the air for him for a long time, but nope. Gaspers is still better on fuel and runs away.
Maybe DJ a little bit conservative on the fuel calculation, nearly runs actually into the wall there on the pit exit. Now that little bit of a squabbly right and left there, have to be careful not to hit the yellow sausage cups. Both of them managed that, so both are out again. And now it gets interesting. How much faster is David Gaspers in the infield? Because he's right now about 1.4 seconds actually ahead of DJ. So if he can drive a win, maybe even catch Jeff Jacobson and Calvin Rhodes right now, then he might be able to separate himself from DJ.
He's probably going to be pushing here. He's got a couple cars in front of him too, so that'll give him a slipstream once they get on the oval. That's Jeff Jacobson and Kellen Rhodes. That is for position, but both those drivers have yet to pit.
And going on to the oval, David Gaspers 1.2 seconds behind the 2, so just about not able to get into the draft.
But critically, about 1.5 ahead of DJ. So I think he may have broken that. It just depends on what the pace is for the number 91. Ooh, Jacobson's just got in the back of Rhodes, actually, as they braked for that bus stop. It was a relatively hard hit. Thankfully, neither of them spun by that. They keep going, but Gaspers is continuing to gain.
He is now, because of that bus stop, in the draft of these 2. So, yeah, if he doesn't make any mistakes, DJ Alessandrini right now out of the picture for the fight for first place, as Jeff Jacobson tries to overtake Kellen Rhodes, who drives into pit lane, and I think Ryan Walker, yes, he is in pit lane.
Yep, so is Kellen Rhodes, who we saw peel away. So that leaves Patterson yet to pit. We're still waiting on Jacobson to pit. Pascal Montgomery needs to come in. Edward Doherty, Ramon Regalado. Looks like Nick Carty is going to stay out one more time. And Paul Jackson finally comes in from 13th.
I'm sorry, Joe, but can we talk about that pass from David Gaspers on Jeff Jacobson? He was about a car length away from Jeff Jacobson when starting to brake, and he actually overtook Jeff Jacobson around the outside, which is heavily off camber through turn 1, and powered away from him already about half a second.
Not an easy thing to do, and the 23 proves why he is a multi-time champion in this car. We see Jim McGill back out after his pit stops. Oh, excuse me. No, he's had an issue here.
Yeah, out of turn 1, running a little bit too wide, and yeah, he tried to test the rallycross ability of the Spec Race Ford.
But they do have a rallycross course on this track too, so I wonder. Now I kind of want to try and see what this car is like on that.
Well, I have seen already slow starts taking to Wild West Motorsports Park, so anything is possible.
Sadro is going to overtake McGill after that, and that puts him in 18th, but no, Sadro has had 2 stops I'm seeing. Oh, and who's in the wall? Tony Schuch out of turn 6. How did he find the wall there?
Okay, yeah, that's one way to do it. Just takes a little bit too much curb there in turn 6, and then loses it on the counter steer, and he didn't brake enough there because his wheels were spinning.
Oh, he's damaged his suspension too. Look at that thing wobble.
Whoa.
Yeah, he's going to have trouble getting it home. He's going to pull out of the way of everybody. I'm guessing he's going to cut through the bus stop chicane here, because I certainly wouldn't want to try and... Nope, he's going to try it. Okay. Best of luck to you.
Comes out the other side.
Okay. Yeah. Certainly doesn't look easy to try and handle that 246. He's going to have to come in for his spare car if he hasn't already.
Yeah,
he have pitted now.
Tony Schuch most definitely adding a few right turns to this layout right now.
Regalado, as I mentioned, the only one we're waiting on as Gaspers and Alessandrini. We watch them pit. Elson's pit. Ryan Walker has now come in and out. So has Patterson.
And can we get a round of applause there for Tony Schuch, who managed to do half a lap with that damaged car, now goes into pit lane. What a drive by him back to the pits.
Meanwhile, on to the oval portion. Alessandrini continues to try and chase Gaspers back down, but it's looking a little bit fruitless. 2.8 seconds between them at this point. Only thing that seems like it could stop Gaspers is incorrect fuel that he's put in, or potentially some lap traffic. Should be pretty easy dealing with the lap traffic around here, though, with these high banks. As we wait for Ramon to pit in from 3rd place. Oh, Regalado just cut the course. I wonder if Regalado has gone too far on fuel. Oh no. Miscalculation from the number 88. And as he drifts down low, is he going to be able to actually make his pit stall? This is a critical error on his part.
Oh, as Adam Bradshaw also made a critical error, because that error did send him right into the tire wall.
Let's take a look at the replay on that one. Single car incident, and the number 5 just noses it straight in there. Watch from on board. Already seen a little bit of damage on the front of the car before this. Ooh, he cut way inside on that first apex. I wonder if that's what caused it.
As the battle for P14 is 3 wide and they nearly touch in the tri-oval there. They actually did touch Paulo Brem, the poor sausage in that hot dog of Pascal Montmorency and Edward Doherty. And all three come out the right side as Emil Orsa spins out in turn 2.
Another case of the curbs causing a big problem. Orza is going to get the rear launched way up in the air here. Watch this.
Yeah, it seems like the jumps or the takeoffs on the Spec Racer Ford are quite easy to manage, but it seems like it is a little bit too soft in suspension for the landings on the rallycross track.
Yeah, today it's certainly the jump causing some issues. Well, let's hope nobody has to take a joker lap through here, because you're not going to be able to finish without paying a penalty there. So we watch that group come on to the oval, being led by Jim McGill in 12th. Montmorency giving chase. Edward Doherty back in 14th. Behind him, and Paulo Brame at the tail of the train.
And Bob Kern right now grabbing quite a lot. What happened to him through turn 6 of this lap?
See if we can figure that out.
That was quite a hit.
With Orza.
Yeah, we're gonna see Bob Kern there spin out and then just recovers his car. Emil Orsa nowhere to go and slam dunk.
Less of a dunk, more of just a plain old slam, it seems. The Georgia driver, yeah, didn't expect him to be on the racing line at that point. You are on the limit. Not been a fun lap for the 96 as we head back to Sadro here. Not a bad recovery considering what he went through. 51 takes 10th place away from Jacobson. Next on his list is Dobeck. That is doable up there. Just about a second up the road.
Glenn Pauli just spun in the International Horseshoe, 1 car incident. So not too much to report, just something that caught my eye watching Daniel Sutter there.
10 minutes left to go in this race. It is being led by Gaspers. As we watch this battle.
Pauli just spun again on the outside of Juricek, trying to let him pass.
Still watching the battle here with Jim McGill up ahead of Paulo Brim and Pascal Morency. See if they can get up to Jacobson, who is just about 0.8 of a second up the road.
Oh, and
critical moment.
Alessandrini with a Code Brown moment through the bus stop just a few moments ago, as he caught a little bit too much of the inside curb and was able to fight that car quite heavily through the bus stop. There we go, on board. Look at those hand movements. Can you catch it? Yes, you can if you're DJ Alessandrini.
We gotta cut course for that, though. It is down to 3 seconds. It would have hurt his momentum regardless. Let's take a look at the comparison between himself and Gaspers. That was a lot slower, nearly a second slower than Gaspers on that lap 14. But nothing compared to lap 10. I think that was when they pitted, though. Okay, yes, that was the pit lap. Hence the big difference in the time, because Alessandrini was that much longer in his pit stall. Elson, by the way, is our third place driver after all that. The 12 seconds back from Alessandrini. He's left Ryan Walker behind at this point. I thought that Ryan Walker would be a lot closer and that there'd be a fight for the final step on the podium, but instead he's just trying to keep from losing fourth.
Well, if you really want to see a fight, your fight is on the P11. Because that's 5 cars fighting it bare hands right now for the position. No, Jeff Jacobson nearly running to the back of Paulo Brem.
On screen, that was Ian Haycox we saw, who spun out of the International Horseshoe. We've got the cameras on Jacobson, who's going to be overtaken now by Jim McGill. McGill moving himself up to 13th with that move, picking them off one by one. And Jacobson almost gets into the back of him
Doherty.
now as Doherty goes off.
All right, if you don't spin, I will spin. That's the motto right there of that spin by Edward Doherty. Perfectly timed with the mistake from Jeff Jacobson.
And nobody around him. That was just plain old driver error. Not much damage, if any, at all. Just bounced it off the tires, picked it up, and got going again. Ian Haycox, after his spin, was set back into the clutches of Juracek, who dutifully took 7th place away. There was the draft down the backstretch. Let's check back in on that battle with McGill and Jacobson. See if anybody does anything around NASCAR 3 and 4.
Well, they were 3 wide down the super stretch, so yeah, anything is possible. Look at now Jeff Jacobson. He will be gaining quite some speed, but also Paulo Brem, that 3rd car in line. He is majorly gonna go. That probably will be a 3 wide situation. Goes past at least Jim McGill. He did lift a little bit behind Jeff Jacobson. Now he will overtake, or at least try to overtake Jeff Jacobson. A little bit of a similar paint scheme there on those 2 cars. There he goes now, a little bit too deep probably on the brakes. Yes, indeed, and that is also Ian Haycox and Miroslav Juracek ahead of them having a coming together.
We'll get to that in a second because they're slow now, and this is going to get a little bit complicated. Jacobson's going to be able to get by, so is McGill as he's under attack. And then, down to the inside, Brame thinks about it. They both managed to get by Haycox, but neither of them caught Juracek. Now, what kicked this off?
Well, that was in turn 1. Juracek, once again, just a little bit too fast into turn 1, loses it on the brakes, tries to save his car. With that, he tips Ian Haycox in quite an interesting spin.
Haycox almost went over and rolled the car. Let's watch from on board Haycox. You see Miroslav going in way too deep. He sees it happening, tries to find his way around.
Ian Haycox, with that incident, had to tow his car, or rather he decided to tow his car because there was a little bit too much damage on that left rear suspension.
Well, Juracek is now going to find himself with a little bit of trouble because Jacobson caught the draft and he's brought along all his friends. So he's going to get by. McGill won't be able to by the time they break for the bus stop chicane. We've got 4 minutes left. Are we on 2 laps to go here? Yes, we are.
Yes.
Jaspers is already across the line. That's how far ahead he is.
Look at Paulo Brem in the background, though. 3 wide with Pascal Montmorency and Brett Holton on the outside.
So that's going to slow them up. I wonder if it's going to split it into 2 packs of 2 here because they've lost Juracek, McGill, and Jacobson. Still going to stay 3 wide, maybe. On the high side, Brem thinking about it, then he thinks better of it, ducks down low as the other group goes single file. Montmorency looking to try and carry better speed into the corner, and he's able to do it because Holton overshoots it. He falls back into line in 13th spot. Again, this is all trying to settle out what is effectively 9th place being held by Jacobson. Oh, and a spin, unfortunately. As Jacobsen, I was just looking around at the timing sheet. And suddenly I look back. Jacobsen is around. Gets caught up, I think, by both Juracek and McGill.
That is indeed so. Juracek only a small bump, but McGill with quite the whack on his car. And he actually also lost the car once again after driving over a bump on the grass. It's quite literally happening just after that bump that we're not going to see, because there's a little bit of access road there. He goes over that and spins around. So yeah,
It's actually worked out best for Juracek because he's 2 seconds ahead of Holton. He's broken that draft, and it's now between Holton, Montmorency, and Bream to settle that. But the white flag has come out. David Gaspers with a 2.5 second lead. Alessandrini's reeled it back in a little bit here. Which does make me wonder, did Gaspers short fuel it just a little bit? Could be kind of tight. We'll see if Alessandrini continues to gain on him, but he's going to have to make much bigger gains. If he gets within that 1 second, David is in trouble, though. On to the oval once again through turn 6. Gaspers pulls the gap back up as Alessandrini overdriving the car a little bit now. He gave it his best go, and though DJ held on to him in the first half and stayed patient, used strategy well, it's not looking like Gaspers is going to be able to do it. What happened to McGill here as he loses more places? Check out and try and figure out what happened a little bit later. Giving some screen time to David Gaspers out through the bus stop. And he is clear. It is basically foot to the floor, take it around the banking, and across the line under the checkered flag. The 23 has won how many of the last few races here? This will be 6 in a row, 7th for the season for him. But this time it has changed because it won't be Sadro behind him in second place. The DH driver with his 7th win of the season here at Daytona. Sandrini follows him home. Elson is going to get that third. Battle for 9th. Oh, wow. Juracek got caught? I wonder if he had damage. I guess that little tip that he had was enough to slow him down. Montmorency caught him up. Is he going to be able to catch him back up, though? Because he was horrible through the bus stop. Holton, who has shown he likes to be aggressive, is there, too. He's going to go up to the high side. We might have a 3-wide situation down on speed. Juracek is a sitting duck. Does he try and block? He can't. They're going to go to either side. Up on the high side, Brett Holton. Does he have enough? No, Pascal is the one that takes the 9th place. And did we have a problem with Doherty? He's out of fuel.
Not only him,
but
but
the line.
Chris Murakami ahead of him is also out of fuel. He's actually starting or trying to wiggle the car to get some fuel into his engine.
And Doherty's going to get some help from Bradshaw behind him. For those who are following the Spec 2 race, Hugh Haycox, was the one that won that race, and he finished 6th overall. Now, did McGill have an accident in turn 1 on the white flag lap here? I'm checking to see. Gained a couple spots from those who who ran out of fuel, rather. Yeah, looks like McGill just spun it on his own ahead of Jacobsen. Always frustrating when you're down to the final lap to go and something like that happens. Just want to bring it home. We're going to bring it home ourselves, though, because we're going to take it to a break. And then we'll have the post-race show, which includes the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around because you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. We just watched round 9 here in the Weekend Warriors. Gaspers said that he didn't like draft tracks, but, well, he still performed incredibly well. He took another victory after starting it on pole. DJ Alessandrini was the closest to try and challenge him, and though DJ played the strategy well up until the pit stops, it was that pit stop that really put the nail in the coffin. Steve Elson, with a quiet third place, was followed by Ryan Walker in 4th spot. Christopher Patterson qualified 17th, avoided the problems that a lot of others around him had, and wound up 5th in the end. Hugh Haycox won that Spec 2 race. He finished 6th overall with Daniel Sadro. Unfortunately, not a good qualifying that put him in the middle of the pack, and he had to take an extra pit stop. Still, 7th isn't too bad considering those circumstances. Michael Dobeck was 8th today. Pascal Montmorency with a run to the line and barely taking 9th over Brett Holton. Brett Holton finishing 10th.
Miroslav Juricek, he finished in 11th place. Paulo Brem, 12th place. Then we have a little bit of a drop to Jeff Jacobson in 13th. Stevie Ray finishes 14th. Jim McGill, 15th. Nick Hardy, 16th, just ahead of Kellen Rhodes in 17th. 18th went to Chris Murakami, who ran out of fuel on the last lap. Such did Edward Doherty in 19th, and Adam Bradshaw, being the helping hand, pushes Edward Doherty to the 19th, so he himself finishes in 20th.
Dominique Bureau, 21st, followed by Nico Schuk in the 22nd spot. Then it's Emil Orza, P23. Paul Jackson took 24th overall after starting 34th. And then Ian Wilson, P25. Matt Solblum, last car on the lead lap, and 26th. Then you've got Bill Daly, 1 lap down in 27th spot. Ramon Regalado ran out of fuel, so he, of course, finishes a lap down in 28th. Glenn Powley in 29th, and Ian Haycox 30th.
Ian Haycox is the first retiree of this long list here. 31st, Tony Schuk also retired. Bob Kern, 32nd, 6 laps down. Loki John, 33rd, 12 laps down. James Tibor, 14 laps down in 34th. Fred Desai, 35th. Wayne Walker in 36th. Antonio Reyes in 37th. And Aaron Fergali, after dropping out of the race very early on in the gridding phase, he only gets credit with 38th.
We've got our winner ready to talk to us. David Gaspers here. David, for someone who doesn't like draft tracks, that race looked like it went very well for you.
Yeah, I didn't expect to end up on pole there, to be honest. I had 0 laps practice before joining qualifying there. And I got lucky that Jen was helping me there, bump drafting through the whole lap, I think. And after that, I think there was some kind of incident behind me, so it was only DJ and me.
Yeah, there was a bit of fighting within the second group, and as soon as they lost touch with you guys, you two were off like a shot. Definitely looked like there was at least some teamwork going on between you and DJ. Was there any verbal agreement over the radio, or was that all just silent understanding of how to play the game?
He asked if it was okay to bump draft me, but nothing other than that.
Worked out all well in the end. Once the pit stops happened, you gapped him. Next race, we are going out to Montreal, which will have some drafting, but going to be a little bit tighter confines. Are you going to be back again and continue this now 6 race winning streak?
I hope so.
All right. Well, we'll look for you in Canada. Congratulations on win number 7 this season, David.
Thank you.
Number 23 taking victory. And now Steph is going to be talking to Alessandrini.
Yeah, DJ, a very impressive first half of the race until the pit stop. But your pit stop was in the end about 2 seconds faster than David's. What happened there?
Guys, I have no idea how this car works. I thought I'll just click it off when David does, because I didn't realize there was a pit stop when I joined the race. So I just went in because he went in. I didn't even know if we needed to take a pit stop, honestly. So I just tried to click it off when he did, and apparently that takes like a little while. And then he caught the draft of somebody in front, and I didn't have the car figured out until the end of the race when I started catching him again. But I made too many mistakes when he was like 1.7 seconds or whatever in front of me. And like I said, he had the draft of that car. So that's kind of all she wrote. I was planning on just being cheeky and just hanging out behind him until the last lap, and then just drive on by him and get the most weaselly win I possibly could. I just don't know that much about this car. I think that was my 4th time ever driving it. So.
Well, now I feel depressed for how slow I am in the Spec race. Thank you for that, DJ.
No problem.
But yeah, no, great race nonetheless. 2.5 seconds into the very end behind David Gaspers. Next up, we are going to that was Mosport. There we go. Thank you,
Montreal, actually.
Montreal.
Close, Canada.
Yeah, Canada nonetheless. How are you thinking about that track?
Mosport's an awesome track, and I bet it would be good fun in the SRF. Turn 5 would be rather tricky because you're coming in so hard on the brakes, and this thing kind of just wants you dead all the time. So that would be a fun little challenge. I won't be able to make next race, though, so I wish these guys all the luck.
Well, see, now you even got DJ confused because he was talking about Mosport when we're going to Montreal. So, yeah, no. So sad to see you, though, that you're not going to be racing in Canada. So, yeah, thanks for joining us here today, DJ, and hope to see you in 2 weeks' time.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
That was DJ Alessandrini racing only his 4th race in Spec Racer Ford, and being able to challenge David Gaspers with such little practice, that gives great hopes for the future between them. Next up, though, it's Joe Peak talking to 4th place driver Ryan Walker.
Yep, Ryan was a big part of that second group early in the race. Ryan, it looked pretty hectic in there. Was there any attempt from that group to try and work together to catch David and DJ, or was it every man for himself?
From where I was, my plan anyway was just to try and settle down and try and keep with David and DJ. But yeah, it seemed to be after 2 or 3 laps, everyone just seemed to be out for themselves. But I guess in a way with draft tracks, there's nothing you can really do. It's either stay behind someone, or if you've got a really big run on someone, you've just got to try and go for the move. But yeah, I think that's the case with any draft track.
Yeah, eventually it all calmed down, it looks like, and you got yourself hooked up with Christopher Patterson. Coming in, did you intend to maybe try and save a little bit of fuel and hope to do that, or were you just kind of going to wing it?
My plan was just to try and save some fuel. Where if I was behind the car, just try and stay in the draft and just lift and coast into some of the slow speed corners. What seemed to work in the end, because after my pit stop, I was able to gain some time and managed to get back up into P4 after the pit stop, and tried everything to try and catch Steve Elson, who was in front of me, but I just ran out of time.
Well, that's your second podium in a row, or no, excuse me, I'm sorry, that you're just off the podium rather. So it's looking like you're continuing to flirt up here with those top spots. What's your goal going to be out in Montreal?
Just to try and finish again and try and get a good result. Obviously, it would be nice to try and finish on the podium again, but with so many good drivers in the field, and when you've got the likes of David and also DJ, who I think I'm not sure if he's planning to do the rest of the season or not, or just race when he can. But when you've got drivers like that around, it'll be difficult to try and win a race. But yeah, podium finish is the aim. So hopefully we can try and get that at Montreal.
Well, we'll watch out for it, and best of luck in getting another podium finish. Congratulations on fourth today.
Thanks, Joe.
That was Ryan Walker, P4, and that's going to close out our interviews, but not before we thank a few people. With a big thank you to our sponsor for this series, Sim Stickers. If you want to check them out, their website is at simstickers.co.uk, and also to iRacing for putting us on IESN for another season. Make sure and subscribe to the channel so you can catch all the action from all the variety of series that they have each day of the week. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Steph, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can check us out on social media, where our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram is GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, heading over to Canada for our next round into Montreal at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. That'll be Sunday, November 17th at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.